The Rye Factor is on tonight.
Reverend Jackson, thank you for what you have done in the past, particularly during your days with Reverend Martin Luther King. I appreciate it very much.
Why is Dr. Ben Carson complimenting Jesse Jackson when racial division in America is continuing to escalate? We'll continue our analysis tonight, and Dr. Carson will be here.
I think what your old boss is doing here is very dangerous for him in an optics way.
As President Obama continues to struggle with his image, White House correspondent Ed Henry will tell us whether there are changes coming at the White House.
What truly matters is that we never forget that our success is based on always giving the viewer something compelling to watch.
Also tonight, actress Sofia Vergara under fire for satirizing herself at the Emmys. But why? We will tell you. Caution. You are about to enter the no-spin zone from Los Angeles. Factor begins right now. Hi, I'm Bill O'Reilly, reporting tonight from Southern California. Thanks for watching us. The truth about white privilege, that is the subject of this evening's Talking Points memo. Last night on The Factor, Megyn Kelly and I debated the concept of white privilege, whereby some believe that if you are Caucasian, you have inherited advantages in America. Talking Points does not believe in white privilege. However, there is no question that African Americans have a much harder time succeeding in our society than whites do. But the primary reason is not skin color, it's education, and not only book learning. Here are the facts. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the unemployment rate for black Americans is 11.4%. It's just over 5% for whites, 4.5% for Asians. So, do we have Asian privilege in America? Because the truth is that Asian American households earn far more money than anyone else. The median income for Asians, close to $69,000 a year. It's $57,000 for whites, $33,000 for blacks. So the question becomes, why? And the answer is found in stable homes and an emphasis on education. 88% of Asian Americans graduate from high school, compared to 86% for whites and just 69% for blacks. That means 31% of African Americans have little chance to succeed in the free marketplace because they're uneducated. They're high school dropouts. Asian Americans also tend to keep their families intact. Just 13% of Asian children live in single-parent homes, compared to a whopping 55% for blacks and 21% for whites. So there you go. That is why Asian Americans, who often have to overcome a language barrier, are succeeding far more than African Americans, and even more than white Americans. Their families are intact, and education is paramount. American children must learn not only academics, but also civil behavior, right from wrong, as well as how to speak properly and how to act respectfully in public. If African American children do not learn those things, they will likely fail as adults. They will be poor. They will be angry. And they often will be looking to blame someone else. One caveat, the Asian American experience historically has not been nearly as tough as the African American experience. Slavery is unique, and it has harmed black Americans to a degree that is still being felt today. But in order to succeed in our competitive society, every American has to overcome the obstacles they face. And here is where the African American leadership in America is failing. Instead of preaching a cultural revolution, the leadership provide excuses for failure. The race hustlers blame white privilege, an unfair society, a terrible country. So the message is, it's not your fault if you abandon your children, if you become a substance abuser, if you are a criminal. No, it's not your fault, it's society's fault. That is the big lie that is keeping some African Americans from reaching their full potential. Until personal responsibility and a cultural change takes place, millions of African Americans will struggle, and their anger, some of it justified, will seethe. The federal government cannot fix this problem. Only a powerful message of personal responsibility can turn things around. And that's the memo. Now for the top story tonight, reaction on Sunday. Dr. Ben Carson debated Reverend Jesse Jackson about racial unfairness in America. Here's how Dr. Carson began.
First of all, to Reverend Jackson, thank you for what you have done in the past, particularly during your days with Reverend Martin Luther King. I appreciate it very much. And I would have to say that we really are not on different sides of this issue. Maybe we come at it from different points of view, but I think we all want the same thing. We want people to move up in our environment, not to be satisfied and not to be dependent.
And joining us now from College Station, Texas, is Dr. Carson, the author of the big bestseller, One Nation. So you were very generous to Jesse Jackson in that debate. Why?
Well, it wasn't a matter of being generous. The fact of the matter is he and a number of other people of all races put a lot on the line. They risked a lot. But, you know, that was a long time ago. And I do appreciate all the efforts that people made. People were thrown in jail. People were killed. Lots of problems. And I think perhaps we wouldn't be where we are today if people hadn't done that. However, we have a very different problem today. The problem today is a social problem. It's not so much a racial problem. You can take any group and you put them in an environment where there's no father figures to teach them, you know, personal responsibility and how to relate to authority. You put them in an environment where people advocate resolving issues with violence, and an environment where drugs and alcohol are easily accessible, an environment where education is not put on the top shelf as the thing that you want to accomplish, and then you send them out into society. Well, what's going to happen? They're going to meet up with law enforcement, or they're going to meet up with other people who are raised the same way as they are, and also have that same mentality. In either case, you're going to have a disaster. That's what we're seeing. It's not a racial thing, it's a social thing.
All right, but Reverend Jackson, with all due respect, he's not nearly as bad as Al Sharpton. He doesn't preach that. He doesn't preach a cultural revolution in the black precincts. He doesn't speak out against the deleterious entertainment that's marketed to young black males in particular, and young black females as well. He doesn't speak about the collapse of the black family. When you compare the black family together in the 1960s, when Jim Crow laws were still in place, to now, I mean, it's like we're in a time capsule going backwards. You don't hear that. All you hear is grievance, 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 money, money, money. Give me more money. I'll solve it with money. You don't hear anything of what you just said and what I just said. Zero.
And it's very sad, because when you look at the African-American experience in America, getting through slavery, through Jim Crow, segregation, I mean, it was horrendous. And yet we had strong families that were able to get through that. Because of those families, because there were people of faith, because we taught children the right kinds of things about self-reliance and personal responsibility, and we made enormous progress right up until the 60s. It was then when we started having people patting you on the head and saying, there, you poor little thing, I'm going to take care of you. And we created a culture of dependency, and it is absolutely destroying.
But it's more than that. I agree that the welfare culture and the pandering and the condescension by the white establishment to poor blacks has harmed them economically. But it's more than that. You remember Motown?
Oh, yeah, it's complex.
You remember Motown, do you not? Wasn't that a fabulous, fabulous music industry, uplifting? You remember Jackie Robinson and Willie Mays? Weren't they fabulous athletes that I idolized Willie Mays? And it was, it was tremendous. And then what do we have now? What do we have now? Gangster rappers, you know, Beyonce, the most famous, doing these videos that show these kinds of things to young 9, 10, 11-year-old girls. I mean, and it's celebrated. Well, you know, it's celebrated. You know, that's
I think the
big
bottom line,
change.
yeah. The bottom line is that we as a society must come to understand that this is a problem that affects all of us. And we don't have to wait for, you know, Jesse Jackson or Al Sharpton or anybody to be the leader on this issue. And it doesn't even have to be a black person. I appreciate the fact that you're willing to step out and talk about this because it is politically incorrect to do so. And that's why
it just breaks my heart.
White people won't do it.
It breaks my heart as a former teacher, and I had a lot of African-American students, to see this kind of garbage. And by the time the kid's 12 or 13, they're almost gone. And I'm just so tired of it. But anyway, you're talking about leadership. We're going to hold Dr. Carson over because he may run for president. And later, will President Obama change his image? We'll put that question to White House correspondent Ed Henry. And the Factor from L.A. is coming right back.